Okay, for this final video clip, I wanted to just talk a couple minutes about decisions that would still need to be made with this game. It's in prototype form now, but there are some key things that could really change sort of the look and feel of the game Drum Major. The first is artwork. For now, I am not a graphic designer and I am not an artist. So what I've been doing up to this point is just using my rudimentary skills the best of my ability to try to create a little bit of a feel for the game so that when I sit down with play testers and they give it a shot, they can get a sense of what it's all about and kind of add a little bit of zip to the game. But my skills are very limited. So right now, I mean, I'm pretty much using photos that I find online, clip art, my own pictures of bands, an AI generator for box cover art, just to sort of give me somewhere to start and to sort of show a little bit of the theme as we're play testing. So it's not just a bunch of blank cards and discs being pushed around. But the artwork could have a huge impact on this game, and I'm really sort of on the fence about it at the moment. I could see where it could get into more sort of a cartoony look and feel, sort of like Creature Comforts or Maple Valley. In fact, you know, there's a great opportunity here, like the balloon cards in the parade, where you could actually use the characters from other games. And sort of there would be like Easter eggs hidden in Drum Major that would point toward other games, which I think would be pretty cool. But at the same time, I'm not sure I want it to go completely cartoony vibe, because I think there's an opportunity for this to have an element of education in it as well. One of the games that I really love is a game called Founding Fathers, and in Founding Fathers, there's a list in an appendix of all the cards in the game, all the delegates to the Constitutional Convention. It gives you a little bit of blurb about their point in history. And I think that's fantastic. And one of the things I would love to see come out of this game is that there's a little element of, first of all, the Harlem Renaissance in there, and sort of the Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington and all of these great musicians who had an influence not just on marching bands but on music. And I would also love to see the HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities in the South, highlighted in some way. A lot of the things, if you notice the styles in here, and also a couple of the goal cards are around dance bands and showmanship. And I think that would be a great element to show off in this game, and sort of an element of history and heritage to show. And my fear is that if you go with artwork that's too cartoony, then you kind of give up that opportunity. But at the same time, I don't want it to come across as a real serious game like Founding Fathers, where it's all about history. I want that fun element to come through. So I kind of feel like there's a real fine line there, and I'm not enough of an artist to be able to walk that line and to be able to do both of those things together. But I feel like given the right artwork and the right style and the right theme integration with the game, I feel like that could be a real home run. Another element that would obviously have a huge impact on the look and the feel of the game are some of the different components in the game. Right now, I just used some old game boards and cut these player boards out, and I have cards made up for signature style and for the music. But my thought was that these could actually be punch outs, and it might give it more of a hefty feel if they were cardboard tokens instead of just cards. Now, one of the things that I like about this is that you could actually use the punch boards, the player boards, to print the actual tokens, the music tokens as well, so that you're sort of getting a twofer there, which would reduce your production costs because the same board is being used as a player board as it is for tokens. Now, the one downside right now, the size of these player boards is not probably big enough. If you were to do that, you can see that the music notes don't fit on these music sheets the way they're currently designed. So if you wanted to use these punch outs to do the music notes the way I have sort of here in this prototype, you would probably have to make these player boards larger. The alternative to that would be that you could just use plain old cubes to put down on your music notes, which would certainly simplify things, but I feel like it kind of takes away from the table presence a little bit. It seems like having different music notes would certainly make it look cooler on the table. Another option could be to actually, like 3D print or create almost like little miniatures for the music notes, but I'm thinking that would be a much higher expense. So it seems to me that using these punch outs from the player boards or just simple cubes would probably make the most sense. Similarly, there's some other component decisions that would need to be made that could impact the cost. Right now, we just have a token show signifying the first player with the whistle. We actually had played around with putting a real whistle in there, but the kids who were playing just kept blowing that whistle. It got a little annoying, so we got away from that. The drum major meeples right now are just 3D printed. These could be either wooden meeples or miniatures, depending on cost. On the game board, there's a police car and a color guard printed at the beginning of the parade lineup. Again, those could be miniatures, which would give it a little more table presence and make it cooler on the game board. Maybe they're upgrades, or maybe they're just printed on the board to save money. As far as the bonus die, right now we're just using this plain old 6-sided die, but I think it would be really cool to have a custom printed die, one that has like a drum on one side, a star on the other side, so that it's a unique die that comes with the game. Another thing to think about component-wise is how to deal with the band room, which is where you roll the dice and you draft dice out of the band room. For the prototype that I've been using, I actually went out in my shop and built this little wooden dice tower. The thing that I love about this, the concept and the theme, is that the dice tower is a school and the band room is in the basement of the school. So you roll the dice and then you're physically taking the dice out of the band room, which I think is cool thematically. And what got me thinking about that is sort of the bird feeder and wingspan, which I really dig. I don't know how realistic that is, that you could actually do some kind of a dice tower in the box that the players build and make it look like a school with the basement for the band room. The lowest cost option would be to just use the box. And that's another thing I've been doing when I don't feel like lugging around this heavy dice tower. I just use the box. So you could actually put artwork on the inside of this to make it look like a classroom, and make the box your band room, which would certainly be a much lower cost option. And one last thing I've been sort of struggling with, and I know I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but printed on the board right now where the color guard is, the color guard on that clip art is carrying an American flag. And the thing that struck me thinking about that was that if you were to sell this game in other countries, obviously they probably wouldn't put an American flag at the front of their parade. So I've been thinking about, are there ways to get around that besides, printing a bunch of different national variants of the game? I think, to me, the most logical thing to do would be able to create a color guard meeple that actually sits at the beginning, and then people could paint their own flag or just leave it unpainted or whatever. But again, that's a super minor issue, and getting way ahead of myself here thinking about international sales when right now I'm just trying to finalize this prototype and get it in good shape. But anyway, those are some of the things that we've done so far with this game, and some of the things that still need to be done, remain to be done. And it never fails. I put a video together and then I go to download it and start to process it, and I always realize I forgot something. So 2 things I forgot to mention. One related to the board. Right now, the prototype board I'm using is just the back of a Risk board. One of the considerations I had early on, I started using score sheets to track scores at the end of the game. But one of the things that you'll notice on the sell sheet, the board looks a little different than this current prototype. I went ahead and added a score track around the outside. And I haven't had a chance to play test that yet because I haven't actually printed up the new board. But I think having the track, in addition to eliminating that component of having to create a scorebook, I think it would actually add a little bit of excitement to the end of the game, because as you go through the different elements of scoring, each person's scoring token will be moving up little by little, and there'd be jockeying back and forth on the score track. So I think having a score track might add a little bit of excitement to the end game as opposed to a scorebook. So I'm leaning in that direction. Also related to the board, one of the things I played around with was trying to create a play mat, and this was sort of a failure. I tried using this online service to create a play mat because my board that I've been prototyping with is sort of getting beat up, but the dimensions were mixed up, and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. But that would also be an option, sort of like Welcome To, or I know Furnace also has a play mat that I have for that game, that are about the same size as this. So creating a play mat, it would be an additional expense, but it would be a very nice upgrade component that could be considered as well. And the last thing I want to mention is, if this game were to ever go to Kickstarter, one of the things that I think would be cool, and it gets back to the element I mentioned about including some history in the game, a little educational element. If you notice the director's objective cards in the prototype, some of them just say Director 10, Director 12, and they're just sort of placeholders. But other ones actually have people's names on them. This one in particular, Lee Caldwell, is the band director for my kids' marching band. He has been the band director for all 6 of my kids. And I think it would be really cool to provide a pledge level in Kickstarter where people could basically nominate their own drum major, their own director, somebody who is really influential to put in the game. Now, there are certain people that I think need to be in the game, people who have made historical contributions that you could include, but then I think it would also be really cool to have a pledge level where people could put their own band directors in the game. I think that'd be pretty awesome. So if you're interested in play testing it and taking a look, let me know, and I'd be happy to set up a time to meet with you and show you Drum Major.